required 9 of the 13 states.
Okay, last day. Last day, test is tomorrow. Yes.
Win it.
Told you that for a week now.
Stop.
Amendment 16. Cole, hit that first light for me, please. Amendment 16, income tax. What is this?
Taxes your income, but you could.
Congress now has the power to tax individual incomes. Federal income tax. Why do we need this? When did it happen? Okay, we need money. Yeah.
After the Constitution was added.
Huh? What?
After the Constitution was added.
After the Constitution was added, so this is before slavery was abolished? No, it would be after, because 13 was slavery, right? This is in 1909. 1909. We're not really in debt, no, but we're getting ready. Maybe World War I's coming up. Okay, but income tax. That provides money for the government. They can tax directly on your income. 17, direct election of senators. This is the Robert La Follette Amendment. Remember him? From American history? Yep.
Yeah.
You do? What was he then? What was his political party? Hold on, you gonna Google him? Progressives. Remember the progressives? And we had the populists who were trying to take the wealthy out, take the power of the government out of the wealthy hands of the wealthy few, right? And then you have the progressives who focus more on industry, anything like child care or child labor, women not working as much in the factories. You know, remember how the factory girls that had the hands were rolled, stuff like that. Okay. Direct election of senators. So we're trying to get the power back into the hands of the people. This is where your political machines kick in, right? Remember, he had the guy that would go around and he would burn down an immigrant's house and then show up right afterwards and say, "Oh, your house burnt down. I got a new house for you. I'll give you a job. Here's $200. Go buy some groceries. What do you want in return?" Nothing. Just go vote for me. Okay? Remember all that stuff? He had a company basically that was running the government. So this is a way to get the government back into the hands of the people. Now, hold on. Now, instead of the state legislators picking who the senators are, with this amendment, the people get to vote. The people get to vote for senators. Not only after the general election, but the primaries. Okay? They get to decide who the candidates are. Now, do you have a question, Desmond?
What if like they don't feel like how does that people like get helped?
Oh, you mean back in the political machine? Nothing.
Would they know if you like went to go vote for them? Like, what if you went to go vote for somebody else and stuff then?
They would threaten you enough to where you would do it.
But they wouldn't keep that.
Why wouldn't they?
How would they
No,
know?
if you.
It's anonymous, yeah, but at the time, they could do a lot more back then. They could be right there by the door, threatening you with a gun, threatening you with they'll take your job away. I mean, they'll do all kinds of things to get what they wanted. That's how a political machine worked.
So why was it before this? Like who gets it?
The state legislators. And if the state legislator is basically controlled by the political machine, that means the political machine could also control the election of senators. Okay? 18, prohibition. Again, another another progressive amendment. Why do they want this to get passed? Why do they think alcohol is bad? It causes crime, causes husbands to beat their wives, spend all their money, causes poverty, causes crime, causes mob violence. What'd they figure out? Causes even more crime whenever you make it illegal, right? Al Capone, organized crime, all that stuff. 19, women's suffrage. Women's suffrage. What does the word suffrage mean? Suffering? So women get to suffer with this amendment? Right to vote. The word suffrage, if you see that word, it means right to vote. So women's suffrage means women now have the right to vote. Okay? If you see African American suffrage, that means African Americans get the right to vote. So suffrage means the right to vote. Amendment 20, the lame duck amendment. Lame duck amendment. Why is it called the lame duck? Huh? What?
They did nothing.
They do nothing. Who's they? Officials. Okay? So officials called a lame duck if he does nothing. What's this amendment do then? Makes people do stuff? You put a gun at their head and say, do this or do die.
Good one.
No, this was passed because of Hoover. Right in the middle of the Great Depression, before this amendment, what this amendment does is it moves the date back of when the president becomes president. It used to be March. Now with this amendment, the date that the president becomes the new president is January. So the election is in what month? November. So now if I lose that election and I'm already the president, I'm only the president for one more month. And then the next guy comes in. Hoover, before this was done, was the president, and FDR won the next election. But Hoover had to finish his term. So he was president for December, January, February, and almost all of March. 4 more months. He did nothing. We were right in the middle of the Great Depression. We had the blizzard that, you got all these people living in Hoovervilles, and then a huge blizzard comes across the entire country. Now people are dying because of coldness, and Hoover does nothing. So we call this the lame duck amendment, and it moves that date that the next president comes into back to January. That's just what it was in the original Constitution. Okay? 21, repeal of prohibition. What does 21 do essentially? Gets rid of 18. So now alcohol is illegal. It basically crosses out all of 18. Twenty-two, limit on presidential terms, also called the what amendment? If this puts a limit on presidential terms, says that you can only serve 2 terms, who are we going to name it after? FDR. This is the FDR amendment. This says that the tradition that George Washington started of a president only serving 2 terms, now with this amendment, it becomes law. FDR served how many terms? He was elected to 4. He served about 3 in a couple days. He died like 2 months into his 4th term. Okay? So, limit on presidential terms. Future presidents can only serve 2 terms. 23, presidential electors of the District of Columbia. What's an elector? Part of what? What are they a part of? Very good. They're part of the Electoral College, the group of people that is in charge of electing the president. That is their only job. So what does this amendment do to the District of Columbia?
Electoral vote.
Gives them 3 electoral votes. Why? Why should we give D.C. electoral votes? Don't they have a state where they already have it? No, D.C. is not in a state, right? Washington, D.C. is not in a state, which means they don't have a state government, which means they don't have senators and they don't have representatives, which means how many electoral votes do they have? None. So with this amendment, we add 3 presidential electors to the District of Columbia. Because really all they have is the city and then the national government. So the mayor of D.C. is a very, very important job because the only thing above him is the federal government. Okay? Same way everybody else gets elected. People vote for them. What do mayors do? They run cities. They're in charge of all that stuff, yeah. Anything that a city has to have to run, the mayor's in charge of it. 24. Abolition of poll tax. What's a poll tax? Pay to vote. We're talking about a voting poll. What's the word abolition mean? Get rid of. So we are getting rid of the tax to vote. Some states were still doing it. Why would you tax people to vote? Not just African Americans, but to make sure the poor didn't vote. And so with this amendment, we get rid of that tax. You cannot have somebody pay to vote. 25. Presidential disability and secession. What is this? If the president dies, who takes over? Vice president. What happens if there is a vacancy? What happens if the vice president dies? We have to re-elect him? Did you elect the vice president in the first place? No, because remember 12 says he's on the president's ticket. So the president then has to pick a new person. Whenever he picks a new person, it has to be approved by both houses of Congress. What if they both die? Who becomes president? Speaker of the House. So what this does is basically outlines a plan. If this situation happens, this is what happens. If this situation happens, this is what happens. Basically, if there's a vacancy and we have a president, the president can pick the person to do that. But it has to be approved by Congress. So just like what happened recently, right? Where do we have a vacancy in the federal government right now? In the Supreme Court. Who's in charge of filling that vacancy? The president. Okay? '26, 18-year-old vote, also called the Vietnam Amendment. Why is it called the Vietnam Amendment? Well, that's what it was. So we had 18-year-olds going to Vietnam, dying for their country, and then they come back at age 19, 20 and can't do what? They can't vote. And there was a big protest about that, rightly so. That 18-year-olds, if they can die for their country, they should be able to vote. So we lower the voting age with this amendment to the age 18. And the last one, Amendment 27, restraint on congressional salaries. What is this? Remember from our slideshow? Congress can raise their own salary, but it doesn't go into effect until the next term. So they must get re-elected to have that raise. Okay? Alright, we need to go back. I don't know how that slide got deleted, but we skipped a point. Okay, so everybody got this? Wait.
You can't do that and expect them to have the same.
You ready now? Destiny, you ready?
You want me to just add it on the end?
No, don't add it on at the end. You need to go back to Article 4. Gosh dang it. Article 4. You need to go back to Article 4 in your notes.
We're on top of that.
Section 4. Section 4 of Article 4 is guarantees to state. Bonus points if you can spell guarantee right the first time.
I did. Oh, I was good.
I hate that word.
Not that one.
I don't like it. Guarantees to the states. Okay? The United States government guarantees all states that they will have a Republican form of government. All states are guaranteed a Republican form of government. You cannot have the King of Florida. Right? You cannot have the dictator of Idaho. Every single state must have a Republican form of government, which means what? You elect people to make decisions for you. Okay? The other thing that states are guaranteed is they are guaranteed protection from invasion. What's that mean? Huh?
Nothing like take over Texas.
Okay, so if Mexico invades Texas, the U.S. government can't say, sorry about your bad luck. Right? If somebody invades the United States or your state, the United States government and military will be there to help you. Okay? It also, one last thing it guarantees, is if you have problems, revolt inside your own state, the U.S. government will help put that revolt down. So, some loony bin in the state of Illinois has a cult of 6,000 people, and they're going to take over the governor of Illinois and create their own government. You better believe the United States National Guard will be there, and they will make sure that that does not happen.
So what is the national government
Yes.
I don't use what
Okay? Alright, you got that from section 4? Article 4, section 4. I don't know how I got rid of that. Works better if you try to drink out of the hole instead of...
It's drinking hole.
No. From this side instead of this side. I grabbed it. It was like this and I grabbed it. Wrong. Okay. So now you have the rest of class. I'm going to leave this rolling. And if you have questions, you can ask. Yep. That way, in case you miss it, you can go back and watch it. Yes, ma'am. How about that? Hold on. Let me pull up the study guide really quick so that I can look at it too. Okay, now what? Oh, you talking about term? So it's our first system of government. Didn't please all the states. Very weak. That's pretty much it.
When we talk about delegated powers, superpowers, fair election,
That's all Article 1. Delegated powers are the powers that Congress has. Powers of the federal government are delegated powers. Reserve powers are the powers reserved to the states. Tariff is a tax on imports or exports. Militia is what we call the National Guard now. Volunteer soldiers, citizen soldiers. Naturalization is what? The process of becoming a citizen. And these are all things, the tariff, militia, naturalization, those are all things that Congress has the power to do and control.
Should I do some up?
Article 1, 4, relations among states. So what can you find in there? You can find the full faith and credit clause, right? You can find what we just talked about today, powers or guarantees that every state has. You can find Congress has the power, or the national government has the power to accept new states. Those kind of things. What are some things that you're supposed to know where to find them in the Constitution? Like if I say Article 1, Section 8, you should be able to say what? Powers of Congress. If I say Where is the definition of treason? Article 3, Section 3. Where's the necessary and proper clause? Article 1, Section 8. The scholastic clause. Scholastic clause, necessary and proper clause are the same thing. Huh? Do you need to remember it like that? Yes. That's why I'm telling you that. What about the full faith and credit clause? Article 4, Section 1. Where do I find national supremacy?
Article 6.
Article 6. The whole article is national supremacy. What about the ratification process? Article 7. What about the amendment process? Article 5. You need to know, like, you should memorize the title of every article. Just hands down. You should be able to say them. Okay? I won't go as far as saying you should memorize the amendment titles, but you should know the big ones. Like the ones that I tell you to give details on. That's probably your biggest hint. Do you understand what that means at the end of the study guide? The amendments. I want a list of all 27 of them. You need to tell me the titles, which I just gave you in the PowerPoint. Okay? I just want you to write them out again. Yes, I know you can just copy and paste it, but I want you to write them all out again. All 27 titles. And then for 1, 5, 12, 14, 15, 17, and 27, you need to tell me what that article does, or what that amendment does. Do what now?
Qualifications to become a Supreme Court Justice, isn't that the same as
Yes, because they're not listed in the Constitution, so we just use the presidents. Except the Supreme Court Justice does not have to be natural born. So we just, now if you're looking at short answer questions, we just answered number 16 today with Article 4, Section 4. What are states guaranteed according to the Constitution? I just gave you all 3 of them today. Republican form of government. Protection from invasion. Protection from revolt.
They don't have to be natural born, is it?
Huh?
They don't have to be natural born like here in the U.S. They can be like born somewhere else as long as they're a citizen.
Of the United States, yeah. So they go through the naturalization process of becoming a citizen. They moved from Ukraine to the United States. Now they have become a United States citizen. They can become a Supreme Court justice. Why?
I would think that like you'd want somebody that's going to live through their whole life.
Yes.
The president overrides the Senate, right?
Can. With a veto.
So that's like what it means by just like he presides over them?
No. Who presides over the Senate? Is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
That means who's the top dog in the Senate?
Oh.
That'd be the vice president.
And then
The Senate.
And the House starts it.
The House starts it, the Senate finishes it. So the House actually impeaches the president. They bring the charges against. The Senate decides whether or not they're guilty or innocent. Let's see. Did I leave anything else out? Let's pull up the test. How about that?
The test is online.
Yes, it will be online. It is 40 multiple choice questions and 4 short answer.
There's no bottom stuff that we have to do again.
like match
That just
Yeah, that's screwed.
You don't like matching? No, there's no matching.
And everything that's in our notes.
Wait, so if we
should know
fail
and
this,
we'll
we
be
can't
able to-
pass?
If you don't pass the Constitution test, you will not graduate.
Wait, this is the Constitution test?
That sounds familiar.
I'm gonna take like 7 times.
Why
No,
did
you're
you choose this
not.
one to go fast?
What's so you can't get lower than 50?
60.
So you just like start off with this and just learn.
You guys are freaking out. It's not that hard. I made the test. It's just like a chapter test. I promise
do
you.
that on the-
I've given you every single thing you need to know.
So if you study, you'll do.
We did the whole PowerPoint. All the recordings are online. I mean, there is no reason that your study guide cannot be 100% done and you do fine on this test. Usually the average is, I think, maybe 2 kids don't pass it the first time. You may not get a grade that you like. Maybe you get like an 85 and you wanted a 100, but very rarely do people fail.
Well, feeling to me is like, okay,
Okay. So like a C,
no.
a B,
Like a B.
okay.
In this class.
You'll be alright. I promise.
A high C, a low B.
Yeah.
Seems like
I'll take a C.
You tell me.
yeah, same. I'm excited.
Who appoints the Supreme Court justice? President. Who approves it? What's part of Congress? The Senate. You cannot say Congress. You must say Senate.
How many members have to go to the vote?
51%. It's called a quorum.
36.
No. You're talking about, that's ratification of an amendment.
See, so they're 2026.
Powers reserved.
Which is something you definitely need to know. You need to know, which we've spent time in the last chapter and both in this PowerPoint. You need to know the amendment process, what it takes, and be specific, both for proposing an amendment and ratifying an amendment. I'll just tell you right now, that short answer question is on the test. How about that?
To propose and ratify. Is it?
You figure it out. The one that has to do with proposing and ratifying an amendment.
What's the amendment?
Two-thirds of Congress, 3/4 of the
2/3 of Congress does what?
To propose.
To propose an
And
amendment.
3/4 of the state.
3/4 of the states must ratify it. Why? Why do they do that? Is that easy to do? No. Why? So why is that difficult? Why do they make that process so difficult? We don't want to change it for little bitty reasons, and we also want to make sure that it's something that satisfies more than half. That's why we use supermajorities. More than half of the American people, and they ultimately what? What do the people ultimately get to decide with the process of amendment? Whether or not it gets ratified, right? Because it takes 3/4 of the states, which means what does that come from? Where do they get that number? If you approve it in a state, that means the people had to vote for it, right? So popular sovereignty. Yes. I'm trying to drill it in your brain. Is it working?
Yeah, I just like this video.
Can you explain number 2 in the short answer?
Number 2 on the short answer.
Yes.
How is a legislative branch related to the laws of the United States? They make them.
Well, yeah, okay, but like that's all you want me to put. Like,
Yeah.
There's no secret answer.
No,
There's no.
you're thinking way too hard.
What's the secret door, dude?
The legislative branch makes laws. That's what they do. What is wrong with this class? There's nothing wrong with this class.
Yes, I overthink it all.
Don't overthink. That's the best advice you could ever get. Taking the ACT, EOC, stop overthinking. Just trust what you know. Don't make it harder than what it is.
right there.
What'd you say?
Would you put
It's like the national guard.
I mean, I know what it is.
I don't think those have all the stories of that.
They're not like holidays.
Mom, she's trying to get them. Where are these 8 powers of Congress? Section 8.
Shoot.
But what's it called?
Powers of Congress? But there's not 8 listed there, so it's a problem. There's only 4 listed. No, there's like
Article 1,
5.
Section 8?
In my notes, there's only 4.
Well, you didn't write them all down then.
You told me the big ones. You
Look.
said write down the big ones.
So you're looking at your term, right? You're looking at your term of powers of Congress?
No, those are my notes. You should have all this stuff.
You should have all of these.
There's 18.
Alright? Because you grouped them together, so that's what I went with. When you grouped together.
Okay, well, no. You group them together, but that's the powers of Congress. All those things that are listed.
But what's the name of it called?
What are the name? What do we call the powers of the national government? The delegated powers, or the expressed powers, because they're listed directly in the Constitution.
Are reserve powers not
Reserved powers are what?
the state?
Powers that are reserved to the states,
But they're not.
and they're not listed in the Constitution.
It's in the laws.
If a law, if it was legal.
What are we gonna do like after that,
We will do chapter 4, and then we will get ready for the EOC. What other questions you got?
Powers granted to Congress.
Powers granted to Congress.
Section.
You guys, you got right there.
Oh.
Right, yeah. That's why I got yellow
Who
on
won?
there too.
Duke won?
God.
Thank you, Brad. We're down by 4 halftime.
Yeah, but the one.
Here goes the win.
But it's. Oh, please.
What was the other seated?
9. What else?
Isn't that like this?
Militia and the National Guard are the same thing, right?
Yes.
I googled it.
Ordinance or separate use?
President has ability to basically wipe your slate clean.
Is that in the article?
Article 2. Powers of the president.
Why are members of Congress paid by the federal government? Okay, hold on, let's see.
Why would you want to have the national people that work for the federal government, so Congress, why would you want them to be paid by the national government and not the state that they work in? Exactly. Why do we want them all? Hold on. Why do we want them all to be paid the same? They all do the exact same job, right? So we want to make sure that they're all paid the same because they're supposed to do the same job. And what happens if California would pay more than or no, let's do it like this. How about Wyoming? Wyoming only has one representative. California has 57. What would happen if Wyoming's was paid $5 million and California's was only paid $50,000? Be different, right? I mean, it wouldn't work. You would have some states that would, they would. Why would you want to be a representative if you're only going to get paid that amount of money? So we got to make sure that they're all paid exactly the same. We don't want states to be in charge of that. We want the national government to be in charge of that, so that states don't have to use that in their budget. What immunity do we give Congress? They can say what they want to while they're in session, right? Don't have to be worried about being sued. And what else can you not do to them while they're in session? Arrest them. You can't arrest them. Major crime. Treason. Something like that. Murder. Yes, ma'am. Yep. House of Representatives.
The Senate has a console, yeah.
Senate finishes it.
I feel like I'm gonna do good on this test.
I know.
I think
We got like all cars.
Whoops. You should be good. Yes, the Senate ultimately decides if they're going to be guilty or innocent. Any other major questions, or I'm going to shut this off? Think we can shut it off? All right. Another one down.